I'm Phil Wallach. I'm a senior fellow here at the Brookings Institution. So, good reasons why we have a debt ceiling. Short answer is there aren't a whole lot. We got the debt ceiling without really reasoning at all into it. We used to have a situation where the federal budget was tiny, the national debt was tiny back in the 19th century, and at that point Congress would pass every bond issue individually. Eventually we got something more like the debt ceiling around World War I, when Congress actually wanted to give the Treasury Department more discretion to manage the debt. And eventually that evolved into what we have today, which is just one limit on the debt that says total outstanding debt cannot be above that, and Congress has to periodically raise that limit. A debt ceiling sounds like a pretty good idea. I mean, government debt sounds bad, and especially $20 trillion of federal debt, which is about what we have today. And it's certainly the case that when you ask the American public if they think having a hard ceiling on the debt is a good idea, they say yes. And if you ask them, should we raise that ceiling, they'll say no. The problem is that the debt ceiling tries to stop debt without actually being attached to the processes that generate that debt. So we have an appropriations process where we decide what to spend on discretionary spending every year. We have entitlement statutes that obligate our spending, and we have tax laws that determine how much revenue comes in. Those are the laws that actually determine how indebted this country will actually become, and the debt ceiling is really something of an afterthought. So a default on the debt and a shutdown are two separate things. They often are getting rolled together in a lot of media coverage because the fight about the budget and getting appropriations to fund the government for this year are rolled together in practice with the question of whether we should raise the debt limit and give ourselves the money to pay our bills at all. But they are two distinct questions. They could be separated out entirely. We could raise the debt limit so that we have no problem servicing the debt while still having a government shutdown. So if for some reason Congress and the President were to fail to raise the debt ceiling in time to allow us to have the funds to pay all our bills on time, we could miss a payment. I think if that were to happen over a protracted period, weeks or months, that would be truly disastrous. Suddenly, all of this U.S. debt that around the world is treated as risk-free collateral and is crucial to the global financial system would start to look risky, and that would likely cause a very bad financial crisis. But if we just missed one payment, I think there's good reason to think that we could treat it as an unfortunate misunderstanding and get back on track pretty fast. There's really nothing preventing us from making our debt payments on time other than the debt ceiling. And so I think if it came to actually missing payments, our congressional leaders and the President would find a way to get it out, to get the debt ceiling raised, to get the payments made with some late fees attached, and probably we could avoid a very serious disaster. So if it's so obvious that the debt ceiling is bad, why don't we just get rid of it? Well, first, as we already mentioned, there's the facial logical appeal of the idea, and so it pulls well with the public. It's hard to get rid of. It's a politically costly thing. But beyond that, there's a sophisticated defense of the debt ceiling that some fiscal conservatives will make. They'll say, sure, of course, we wouldn't have chosen to put in this debt limit if we were just rationally designing a system from scratch. But since we do have it, it provides a good opportunity to force us to periodically revisit the debt. And it'll even give fiscal conservatives a chance to make some demands on sort of disciplining our spending going forward. The problem is that in practice, it tends to draw fiscal conservatives' fire away from the fights that are actually the most consequential. I've called it, the debt ceiling is like a roach motel for fiscal conservatives. They can check in, but they're going to have to concede everything important before they check out, because in practice the debt ceiling is always going to get raised.